More cross-dressing. When we heard England rugby legend Lawrence Dallaglio had a book of his best rugby tales, we thought where best to come and have a chat with him about it on a cold, wintry evening than here in a London boozer.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
All right, Lawrence, well, I've shelled out already for your autobiography. Why should I go and buy this one?
Because it's funny, because it's a throwback to an era where rugby players wore the very shirt you're wearing today, actually. You've graced us with your vintage England retro shirt, a true Englishman.
Absolutely.
I think that when you look at rugby players, you can measure their statistics, their performance, what they've won, what they've lost, what they've done in their career. What's more difficult to quantify and measure is the amount of fun and enjoyment that they've had throughout their career. And certainly my career and many of my contemporaries has been sort of underpinned by just a huge sense of fun and enjoyment. I just phone guys up, email them and say, look, give us your best story that's printable, obviously, and there were plenty that weren't, trust me, on or off the field, and you know, and see where we go. And it's you know, it's a hilarious compilation of some urban myths, some, you know, after dinner anecdotes that we would have heard already, and some that we probably haven't heard, and from a wealth of different characters.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about the great tales. I mean, there are some hilarious moments in rugby, and we've got to have a flavour of one of them.
Dowie Morris, when we're being introduced to Nelson Mandela, you know, going down the line before the first test, you know, asking him a question. He said, I've got to ask him something. And, you know, Dowie was always renowned for coming out with the most obscure comments. And he sort of grabbed Nelson Mandela's hand and said, do you have road tax out here? Which I thought was quite, which is the most random comment for a man who's been in prison for 25 years, poor man. You know, just all sorts of...
The answer?
He did, actually, poor man. He looked very confused. He turned to his two bodyguards and said, well, do we? He said, I don't know. Touring has got to be one of the greatest things you can do in rugby. And for many rugby clubs up and down the country, they could probably all write their own rugby tales book of the characters and the stories. I remember my first WASP tour as a young 18-year-old. I was hung out of a 4th floor window by my ankles to collect the kit that had fallen down onto the balcony below. You know, I can't imagine now in the professional era that kind of thing it can happen, obviously. Yeah, sure. But I mean, the lovely thing about the Lions tour recently was that, and I know that Ian McGeechan is a big believer of guys having fun and, you know, that link between the old and the new. And the Lions looked to be having a real good laugh out on tour, and I think that was reflected in the way that they played. So maybe some teams are missing a trick or two, because for me, if guys are happy and they're having fun, you know, that is often reflected in the way they play.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet...
Good man, it's on a point.
Well, being a rugby player sounds like a right laugh. Now, I've heard Martin Johnson and his England boys have got a few injury problems, so I'm off to Twickenham to try and get a game.